Skål. Welcome to Skyhooked.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Danish skydiving podcast.
That's awesome.
Thank you for attending.
You're
and
very
both
welcome.
of you, actually.
Yeah.
This is a first for us. I don't think we've ever actually done it together in this fashion.
No. Yeah. And thank you for the free beer.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's
Hope
why,
you like
that's
Corona.
why we're here.
So, Laura,
Yes.
how did you start skydiving?
Well, that's interesting. Is the first time I ever skydived is I was learning how to salsa dance, and
Yeah?
there was this guy, and he was amazing. He was like such a good salsa dancer, and he said, "Oh," and he worked for NASA, and he was like, "Oh, I want to go skydive. Do you want to skydive?" And I said, "Wow, that sounds like an amazing idea, skydiving." And at the time, I was deeply, deeply into scuba diving. I was, doing advanced, deep, trimux, cave diving, and I thought, wow, that just sounds amazing. I want to try to do it. So I went to, and I learned in Delmarva in Delaware, and I went there. And we were really the weather was very bad, and we weren't sure we were going to skydive. And finally, at the end of the day, I managed to get the skydive in, and it was incredible. It was one of those experiences to me that empowered me and made me go, wow, I want more of this. And when I landed, I was like, I'll be back.
Okay, was it the tandem or solo?
It was a tandem.
Yeah.
And then a month later, we were scuba diving, and the weather was very bad. And they said, "Oh, no, we're not going to go scuba diving anymore." And I said, "Well, I wonder if they skydive when it's windy." And so I called up, and they said yes. And so I said, "Come with me. Come and try skydiving with me." And so I brought a whole bunch of people with me.
Really?
And we went and we did AFF. And after that, I was hooked. But it took me many years to actually complete my license because I had been scuba diving all the time, and it was hard to balance scuba diving with a lot of things. And I had a dog, like a very large dog, like a 120-pound wolf hybrid that would not, I couldn't balance it enough that I could skydive. So it took me 3 years to finally actually get my license. So
Yeah.
so that's how I got into skydiving.
And do you two met through skydiving?
Sure.
Or? Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
When?
Oh God. It was a while ago. It was so basically I was giving a talk in sharing demos. You show up with all the parachutes and let people try your stuff at Carolina Sky Sports.
No.
No. Yeah.
Yes.
Carolina.
Yeah, you're right.
It
That was where we first met.
Yeah,
Yes.
North Carolina. And so I've got, the demos and the whole thing. And I was it a weather hole or something?
There was a weather hole.
And so we started chatting outside. We're just talking. And I don't know, an hour goes by and we're locked on and just really talking. And she had this energy, this sort of high spirited, yes, anything kind of, adventure stuff. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. And I'm like, well, that's kind of me too. And so we clicked. And then I went back inside to work, with my wife.
Your wife?
Yeah.
Your then wife, I assume.
who was at the time
Yeah.
running. Yeah. So eventually, over a few years, that marriage dissolved. And later on, we showed up at some other drop zone in Orange, Virginia.
Off each other
Yeah, we crossed paths a few times.
And we'd hang out and go, wow, there's still a connection
Yeah,
here.
exactly. And so then I was available later on. And yeah.
Yeah, and then
I said, it was late at night. We're at the campfire, middle of the night, talk. Because we're always the ones that tend, if you don't have kids around, we're the last ones at the campfire.
yes.
We both have that MO. And here we are at Orange at the campfire at probably 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, so where are you staying?
Oh.
Well,
And she said, well, I'm sleeping in my car. I was like, well, they gave me the VIP trailer.
I was like, the VIP trailer sounds great.
Which was smaller than this one.
It was tiny. I walked in, I was like, wait, this is the VIP
But she
trailer?
didn't know that.
And not when he told me, when I was like, oh, I assumed there might be
Sounds nice.
a nice trailer, the VIP
And she
trailer.
probably assumed there'd be, 2 beds.
2 beds.
And Of course there wasn't.
Of course there wasn't.
It's just being nice. It was, chilly night.
And well, but we were very good and behaved.
Not that good.
Well, not that bad.
So yeah, that's kind of how it started, and then we ended up getting married.
Well, no, because he went away. He actually came here he went to Sweden. For a month. So maybe you went to Denmark. Too. So you went to Denmark and Sweden after we had kind of, met late at night in the VIP trailer. And then I remember I had gone out and I was like drinking with some friends and I was walking back home and I was living in the city and I kind of sent him I said, I'm going to see, I think he might be back. He'd said he'd go for a month or something. And I sent him a text saying, hey, how's it going? He's like, who's that?
I didn't know who he would. You get a number.
Yeah.
And a text. And if you don't identify yourself, it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Right? A Nigerian trying to steal my money or something. And so, and so at that point I was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm getting ready to move to Colorado in a couple days.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, why don't you come over and visit?
Yeah. Well, I said, why don't we go out?
Yeah.
And actually, so we went on a real date.
Wow, not the skydiving type of date, but with normal clothes.
Like normal clothes.
Bethesda, Maryland, very fancy town,
Yeah, it was very nice.
I don't know, we did rollerblade or something.
No, we went to like a Jaleo's, the tapas place.
Tapas, yeah.
Place,
Yeah.
And we went out.
So, then I spent the night and a night and a night, and then...
And he didn't leave.
No.
Never.
I called the moving company who had already picked up all of my stuff.
Oh.
And I said, guys, is there any way you could store all my stuff? And we're talking about an entire parachute factory.
Yeah.
Plus all this other stuff. They were like, yeah, we can do that. And so, was it about a month later, we bought a house.
Yeah, about a month later, we bought a house together.
When was that?
It was 2006.
Okay.
There you go. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
And then I got a lot of my stuff back from the movers, not all of it, and some of it disappeared.
Hopefully, no parachutes.
Hey, I got my Stargates back, so I'm good. Back then, I was really into Stargate, and I had all of the DVDs, and to me, that was like the only thing I cared about because I can always build a new parachute.
And then he made me watch every single one because he made all of these Stargate references all the time. And I never got his jokes. And he's like, you don't get my jokes. You need to watch Stargate in order to get my jokes. And so I did. Every single one of them.
You were in love.
Yes. We were, if you can visualize two birds that come together and they crash and they're holding on and they're sort of slowly falling.
Yeah, and they have to exchange DNA prior to impact and then they separate. Some birds do that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. We bought the house and we didn't get married for a little bit longer. It was just more of buying the house was actually a bigger commitment to us. That was marriage.
Yeah.
Well, we had to do something because her apartment was too small for my parachute factory, and I had orders that I had to fulfill. Called my buddy in Colorado. Sorry, dude, we're not going to do the divorcee bachelor pad thing like we thought we were going to, but this is probably going to be a lot more fun. Yeah. So yeah.
12 years later.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And here we are.
So how did you start skydiving?
Oh man!
I assume you started before Laura.
I did. I started in 1986. Yeah, she was doing what in '86?
Let's not talk about that.
She's younger, and so I started in 1986 on the Canadian border in New York State. I was a college student, freshman in college, 18 years old, and I remember in the dormitory where I was staying. They had a big meeting. They said, we have to do some sort of a group event. We're required for our whole floor. We're talking about a lot of kids. We all got to do something. And the guy says, well, I was thinking, I'm really into skydiving. He had 11 jumps. And we could all go jump. And I was like, yeah, here's my hands up. And a bunch of us, 18 of us, 18, all went out. And I remember the first jump instructor, Dick Swanson. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know Mike Swanson. He's at Red Bull Air Force, right? So this is his dad. Came to our dorm to teach the first jump course. And I remember thinking, man, I hope it's not like those fancy Technicolor trick shoots. I want like a green G.I. Joe round, slam you into the ground, old school parachute. I was praying for that, and that's what I got. Because in 1986, it was all gutter gear. AADs, no, static line direct bag, T10, 35-foot diameter parachute, belly mount reserve. I did not have a malfunction until my third jump.
Your third. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Third.
Well, the second one I actually had my reserve out, but that was not because I needed it. That's what they said when I walked in. I don't think you needed that reserve. Well, back then, we had to practice ripcord pull. We called it PRCP, or back then it was dummy ripcord pull, right? Now it's demeaning to say dummy. It's a DRCP. And so that was a cloverleaf handle on your right breast. And just below that was another cloverleaf handle.
Yeah.
That looked exactly the same. That actually
perfect design.
pulled your reserve, right? And so I wasn't the only one, but for me, I thought I was the only one.
And nobody thought about changing.
Arch, reach, pull. What's all this white shit? And so I grabbed it really fast. They didn't train me to do this. I grabbed it all really fast and I wrapped it up into a ball and I shoved it between my legs and I kept it there until landing.
Wow. Yeah. Good thinking.
Yeah. True story. Yeah, so it was rough back then. The landings were hard. We landed all over the place.
Yeah.
But we had a big airport, so there was no trees to worry about.
And when did you have the idea that maybe I can live like a skydiver, or sell equipment, or design equipment?
I mean, I always knew I was going to jump regularly, but at that point, it wasn't my primary goal. I wanted to be an astronaut. All of this, I was Air Force ROTC kid. I was going to be a pilot, and then I was going to take that ride all the way to NASA. And, I was kind of square. And I started jumping, and I got a little more round. And I realized sooner or later, I can't kill anybody, so I bailed on the Air Force thing.
Okay.
And I had 1,000 jumps before I finished college. I was hooked.
Whoa.
And so I, sort of became a professional, and I was a, packer, an AFF kid, and I was doing tandems, traveling around, working at drop zones, a lot of the time I was just this kind of geeky virgin skydiver that was more interested in skydiving than anything else. True story. Yeah.
So how was it between the two of you? Because you were both skydivers, and it was your job, right? But what about you?
By then.
Oh, I actually had a professional career as a computer engineer. And I was working, doing all kinds of computer-related engineering stuff.
Like government level.
Yeah.
Really.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of that stuff. And when we first were together, it was always very complicated because he worked on the weekends and I worked during the week. And so we had this sort of ships in the night thing going on where he would want to go travel and everything. And I was like, I had a limited amount of days that I could actually take as leave. And
she had her grown-up hat that
she
put on during the week.
And
I'd keep her up too late. And she'd have trouble going to work in the morning because I wasn't on a normal grown-up schedule.
Yeah. So it was a challenge. It was a huge challenge to sort of live that sort of lifestyle. I had one foot, in an adult path, and I had another foot in the skydiver path. Not that those aren't.
Yeah, but you were also on a 4-way team, a serious.
I was
team,
competing at a national level
FS.
on an all women's 4-way skydiving team. Fox Force 4, plug.
Pam Riggs, and Portia Hill. These are very good skydivers.
Very good. We were amazing, and we were getting there, and we were getting better and better, and we did that for a number of years. And I did the women's world record. I did jump for the cause, and so I had. I had really developed myself professionally and, recreationally, like obviously, because I had been doing scuba diving and I'm a licensed pilot and I've done a lot of things. I've always just sort of, I like to kayak. And so I've sort of always
developed. She's really good in a kayak. She'll diminish it, but she's a badass in a kayak.
So I've always sort of developed myself, in many different ways. And so at one point, eventually, I was, professionally, I was like, okay, this is not really working so well. And I also, at that point, I had a child. So I had Joshua, who was about 9 months old, and I said, I think I'm going to change. So I left my professional career as an engineer, and I went back to school.
Yeah.
And I got my degree. And the one thing that I did was my minor was in business administration. I said, well, I'm going to use that. And so I used it, and I created Adventure Wisdom, which is an online adventure sports training where you can. I leveraged Brian, who is amazing. I'm totally pimped him out.
She's my pimp.
He's like, I pimped him out. I'm like, here, Brian, you can get Brian anywhere if you're on the world, anywhere you can download Brian.
Yeah, off-world, not as much.
It's not so easy. Just the satellites aren't
But if you
pointed
have
in
a
the right
Stargate,
direction.
then we could,
Yeah, that would exactly
beam it and download the information.
So I created Adventure Wisdom, and then I published a children's book, and I created a publishing company for that as well. So I'm sort of this, serial entrepreneur now, and that has created a lifestyle where I can actually travel with him, and I have my weekends free, and then I was able to sort of raise my children. So I feel like I'm quasi retired a little bit. I'm sort of retired, but not really, because I'm still juggling all these hats and these balls and these things. And so, but it has, the lifestyle that I have created, having left my engineering career, has allowed me to sort of become a little bit more integrated in Brian's life, which has been helpful.
And quite frankly, there's a lot of things that I'm good at, and there's a buttload of things that I don't know anything about. And when it comes to running businesses and all these little detail things, it's kind of not my thing. And I can try to learn it, but Laura has a knack for certain functions in the business that are essential.
Yeah.
And my whole career has been very helped.
Yeah.
Very much helped by the aspects of knowing the computery stuff, and what you don't know, you learn it.
Yeah.
And we have other friends that help us to know what we don't know. Elios Galil is a very good friend of ours, a French guy he's a Greek guy that lives in France, so we say he's a freak, And so he lived with us.
Yes.
We met him on the road.
We picked him up in Poland. And he's like, wow.
We came to the course.
And he was like, well, first he didn't come to the course. He just was on the drop zone and he was learning. And I started chatting with him. I said, there's a canopy course going on. You should sign up for that.
Yeah.
And so he did. And then after the canopy course, he said, wow, that was great. And you could see, he's actually on one of our demos where demo tapes, where you see him in the beginning, it's not a great landing. At the end, it's like this beautiful landing. Yeah. And then
he made a lot of progress, and he was, we just all clicked as a family,
We're leaving, we're going somewhere else.
And whatever. It was like, we're going to Sweden. You really got to come. We're going to Skåne. It's going to be great fun. He was like, really? Well, I'm on my bike. I was like, you can put the bike on the road, and then you drive across, from Copenhagen to and he came.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. He did my course again, and of course I didn't charge him, and he just kept on hanging out. And we were like, we're going to Estonia. He came to Estonia with us. It's quite common. I've had a lot of folks that just come and live with me and help, or we meet up with them on the road. Rob G is another one that he traveled all over the place with me, packing parachutes and driving, when I was too tired or whatever. He was very helpful. But Ilios really helped us with the computer stuff, with the setting up the website and figuring out how to do it. Well,
what happened is I had already had the website established, and I was leveraging a system that allowed me to do this training, and it was draining the business dry. It was too much overhead.
It was a nice concept,
and it was great to begin with, but I needed to sort of do a pivot and do a change in the way we delivered it, and I knew that the website needed to be redesigned, and I needed a sort of a shopping cart system. And so I said to him, all right, this is what I need from you. Ilios, I need this and I need this. Can you go to find it, find something that's going to help me, host it, that's going to do this. And because I had an IT background, so I knew what I needed. I just didn't have the time to do it, to research it, to build it. And so I said, okay, these are things we need. make it happen.
Yeah.
And so he was instrumental in finding the platform and finding what we needed. And then he put it together. And then once he put it together, he said, okay, this is how it works. And I said, okay, great. You know,
So
thanks.
suddenly he worked for you guys?
Yeah.
It was kind of like a
He moved
casual.
in.
Yeah,
he flew to
moved in.
America.
It was sort
We
of like
didn't
a
have
trade.
a place for him, so we kind of made a corner for his bed. We couldn't really open some of the doors to the closets in the room, but he was parked basically in my sewing factory downstairs, and he was cool with it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was his age, I would have been cool with it too. But you know, he was in his 20s. He was like, whatever. Right? I'm in America. Woohoo.
Yeah.
And he, you know, we over the years, you know, we make as many jumps with it as we can, but mostly, he was just really helping us with this website, and really made a big difference.
Well, I think he first was like, hey, Brian, you know, I want to help you. What can I do?
Yeah.
And Brian's like, well, I don't know. He's like, but Laura needs some
Well,
help.
he
And I'm
ended
like,
up- he was-
yeah,
I mean, like-
come on over here.
Yeah,
I got
well,
some
I mean,
things for you to do.
Yeah, he was making line sets, you know, helping with parachute
Yeah,
manufacturing also, right? Because we still do that. You know, our house is kind of funny, right? So it's not very big, but it's big enough for us to cram in a parachute factory and a film studio. And we've got, you know, have 4 kayaks and a canoe and a paramotor and all the camping gear. We teach climbing, so we've got tons of rock climbing equipment.
Clutter, clutter, clutter.
Yeah, but it's fun clutter.
It is fun. It's like you walk into our house and there's this like whole gear corner, and you walk in and it's literally helmets
It's-
like hanging
we
on
have-
a staircase.
Yeah, we have a
with the
spiral
climbing
staircase that
gear
all
and-
the stuff is hanging from, kites and paddle and everything else. So yeah, it works.
Yeah.
It works, and we're 9 miles north of Trump's house. We're right there in D.C.
Well, Maryland, but the D.C. area.
Yeah. Well, for somebody in Denmark, you say Maryland, they're like, oh, so what do you like? Fish for crabs, or so? You know, we're not that close to the ocean. We're like an hour away or something like that. But we're right there on the train, so we can take the kids to the D.C. you know museums and stuff. And one year at one of the, what was it called, the Experimental Aircraft Association, one of these dinners that we went to.
Oh, yes.
We met.
It was the National Aeronautic Association, one of their dinners.
Big
that they
dinners,
have.
right, in D.C. And we met a person who runs the educational programs at the National Air and Space Museum, right? The biggest, busiest museum in the world, right? And they were like, can you like come and do this one event? And we're like, well, yeah. Well, that was like more than 10 years ago.
It was like 11 years
And
ago.
we keep doing it every year, or a couple
yeah.
times, sometimes 3 times a year. And we set up the parachuting exhibit with the wingsuits and the blower fans and the whole deal right next to the XR-71 Blackbird. The first year they put us in the corner and they were like, oh, you guys are popular. So they moved us into better places. And then now you walk in the door and boom, there's the parachuting exhibit. We got the screen with the movies going, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's kids. It's sort of like reaching the next generation of skydivers.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people, when they're getting into skydiving, it's not always something that's mainstream, and I don't think people feel like it's accessible. They sort of
No.
say, oh, it's like James Bond, you know?
Yeah.
But to be able to show it to kids and say, here is skydiving, you could be doing this as well. And
Yeah.
I think that you know, it creates a seed in their mind that maybe in the future they will become skydivers.
Because that was my next question. How do you explain to people who not skydive what you do for a living?
We do that a lot, right?
can
'Cause,
imagine.
I mean, constantly. I'm in schools. You know, I go to all kinds of schools and give talks at career days. You know, a lot. Like sometimes it's kind of too much. You know, like, sorry, honey, I got another one, and they'll put me. You know, I'll do 6 different talks
And you do it for free.
in a day. Of course,
Yes.
of course. I mean, some of these schools are the bad side of town in Washington D.C. You know what I mean? Really impoverished kids, and many of them don't speak much English. They just got kind of off the boat. They just climbed over Trump's wall or whatever, and I couldn't help it. And
Well, you're in Denmark, so go ahead.
exactly. Yeah. And they love it, and we just kind of start at the beginning. We're like, yeah, we're professional skydivers. Like, what?
Huh?
How do you get paid to do that? It's
Yeah.
like, you know, I'm a professional ball bouncer. Well, okay, how do you make a living, you know, doing something so much fun? And I say, well, latitude. In other words, having multiple sources of income within your dream. And when I'm sewing, I'm not skydiving, but I'm part of it, you know?
Yeah.
And when I'm doing a podcast, I'm part of the sport.
Yeah.
Right? And when we're figuring out the back end stuff on the website, like why this one product is broken because in the middle of the night I changed one checkbox and she's like, "What did you do?"
Without control and asking Laura, says,
Laura.
Can I change it?
No, you cannot.
No, you cannot change it without asking
I
Laura.
spent many years kind of on my own doing it my way, and I'm not used to being on a ship where there's another person. And so I just changed the sails on the ship. You know what I mean? I changed the heading and we're tacking. She's like, wait a minute, you didn't tell me that we're going to tack. And there's the boom knocking something off. And so this is the adjustment.
It is.
Isn't it? It's not that easy.
Yeah, just this week somebody said to me, "Oh, I went to your events page on your website and there's nothing on there. Where are your events?" I was like, "Oh, well, that's because Brian started putting them in the shop. You have to actually go to the shop and find the list here."
Well,
so I was like, "But thank you, because I thank everybody because they're helping us when they find these errors, because I don't always have the time to check and find
It's perfect
these errors."
feedback
It
from
is,
the
it's
customers.
great. And it's from customers. And I have to say, the one thing, it's been a huge change for me, because when I started, when I was working as an engineer, and if I spoke to customers, it was difficult. They were angry, they were like upset, and they had problems. And now it's like I talk to skydivers and they're happy and passionate and excited. And I'm like, wow, this is work? How did that happen? These people are like thanking me for being able to like have Brian Germain at their desktop. And so I feel like I've really provided a service to the skydiving community in that regard. But it's, it's a big difference. But I just have to keep Brian in check and make sure he doesn't make too many changes.
I'm creative. It's my nature. But it's funny because the relationship that we have in that regard is mirror image to what it was when I worked at AirTime. Right, so when I first started designing parachutes, I was at Tony Suits, right, and Tony Suits / AirTime Designs, Tony Uragallo, right, who at the time he was my teammate, and also we designed together, and eventually he kind of let me do the majority of the design work. But he's a brilliant man. But in the middle of the night, he'd go into the shop, often inebriated, and have an idea. And he'd take the patterns, and back in those days, we didn't have laser machines and CAD, 3D. No. We had plastic. And you would cut the plastic with scissors.
Oh.
And that was the pattern. That was the airfoil. That was the bottom surface or whatever. And he would go take the 120, which was the one we did most of the work on because we liked to jump 120. So we did our R&D on that. And he would cut the airfoils and change the masters. He wouldn't make a copy and then and then he'd be like, "Oh, it's going to be bad." And we'd jump in and go, "Tony, it's not bad." And then I'd have to glue or tape or whatever the patterns back together. I was like, "You saved the shards, dude, didn't you?" "Oh yeah, it's right over here."
Some of it.
Oh wait, yeah. And so it was hard. And so it reminds me a lot of what we've got going on.
He won't hear this, I promise.
Of course he will, but he knows. Tony knows. No, but Tony, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? He's brilliant in a way that it's sort of quasi-scientific, but much more artist.
Okay.
But he found his way to designing the world's first elliptical parachute, the Jonathan. Parachutes de France was trying something, the blue track, but it was not elliptical, it was tapered. This was a curve, it was smooth, it was beautiful. He had these very creative ideas. And it did take other people like me, like Chris Bagwell before me and Marco Iaccola to come in and say, "Tony, dude, let's take this down a notch. Let's simplify it, and let's not do our R&D on our customers." It's kind of an outside the box idea, but Tony he treated it like jumpsuits. He'd change the pattern on the jumpsuit, mail it out, and go, "How did it fit?" Or the sit wings, how do they fly?
Yeah.
Literally, he would change it and call them. But if it's a jumpsuit, you go, whatever.
Yeah,
a couple,
sure. It won't kill you. It's just
some of those sit suits could kill you.
okay.
Some of those, some of them could, and some of the camera suits.
Oh yeah,
camera suits not right
with the wings.
Yeah, theoretically it'd kill you, but he didn't
Mine
kill
at
him.
you
I don't think he
and
ever
the
killed him.
wingsuits. Yeah.
I don't think he killed anybody. But he had, in the way that I've got Laura, I've got Elios, and people like that just help to bring the sanity back in when I get a little too creative.
Brian, time out. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on, where's the R&D?
Yeah, exactly. Stop jumping that crazy wingsuit that you keep changing.
Yeah, like, come on, let's document these changes to make sure. No,
Yeah.
it's not that bad though. If
Well,
you really,
I mean, how many times have I been hurt doing this stuff?
oh,
Not so much.
no.
Really?
Mm-mm.
You don't have any serious injuries?
Not from skydiving.
Really?
No.
How many jumps do you have?
I've got over 16,000 jumps.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yep. But I've had oh shit moments.
Yeah,
Plenty.
of course.
Plenty. But I always manage to, sort of get the ship back to port. Most of the time I don't have to cut away my prototypes. Almost always. I might have to do extraordinary things like continue to spiral the parachute to keep it from collapsing. So from 13.5 or 4,000 meters, I'll just
Don't try this at home, kids.
just keep spiraling, but change the speed of the spiral so I can navigate myself to where I want to go, and then at the end of it, sort of flare myself in. I've had to do that.
Don't do that.
I named that prototype it was called the Tornado.
Oh.
Yeah, I named it afterwards. But yeah, it's fun though for me to design a new parachute or come up with some new crazy idea like this vectored slider thing that we decided to call Dragon's Breath.
Oh, is that what you came up with?
Yeah.
You asked me yesterday what I should, and I was like, oh.
Then I asked my class and we voted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we decided to call Dragon's Breath. So basically the air goes into the slider through a mesh vent and it vectors it forward towards the center cell, and you get these really nice on-heading openings generally. So far. I mean,
We'll see.
yeah, it happens.
My only cutaway is due to jumping a prototype parachute.
But you jumped it 500 times.
I was not the only one who jumped it. Like, at least 3 or 4 other people had jumped it as well. And then, yeah.
Always check the work from a factory.
Yes, always.
Because bar tacks are very small and hard to see. And sometimes they're not even there.
Sometimes they're not. Especially if it's a prototype, because you don't actually sew them on a prototype until you're sure they're correct.
Yeah, at least that's the way we do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the larger companies probably just cut off the prototype line set and put a new one on.
Yeah.
But Tony and I have always just you make a special kind of knot so you can finger trap it, and if you don't like the trim, you just undo that and mess with it and see what works better. But we actually, one of those we had go to 1,000 jumps without any of the lines sewn. Yeah, it worked. And then several of the lines fell off on one jump. But on Laura's, it only took about
the lines
4.
fell off.
Yeah,
400 or so jumps.
Yeah, it was only one. It was only one. It was just at the base, so it was the A and B.
Yeah.
On the wingtip of an 81.
Yeah. And I looked up, I was like, what's going on?
It was flapping like a bat.
And it was flapping around. I was like, what's happening here? And then I looked at it and I went, oh, I'm missing lines. Because it took a second to register that it was there. It was moving, but I was moving very fast. I was like, why am I still moving so fast? And then I look up and it was like, because the whole side of my parachute is just flapping. I'm like, 81, nope. This one is gone. See ya. And I was like, I'm going to have to do this. And
Yeah.
But it's fun, though.
Yeah.
Chopping is fun.
Yeah.
In the moment, you're kind of, the cognitive dissonance of not sure if you can, and your ego's like, but I don't want to fail to fix my parachute. And then your brain switches gears into execute.
Yeah.
Right?
Survive.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it goes to this flow state, right? Of what you've rehearsed so much. And then it's just the following through of a dream, really. To me, the rehearsal we've done is this manifestation that's kind of cued like a rubber band pulled back, ready to go when it's time, and it just happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I love it. I love cutaways. I haven't had one. It's been a few years.
Cutaways.
Well, it's because you haven't had whatever. I've got 12 or 13
okay.
or something. I can't remember how many. Around that.
Yeah.
Which isn't so bad.
But that's not much when you fly prototypes of parachutes.
Most of my cutaways were really earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple weird things, but most of it were just parachutes doing what parachutes do.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that you have found your separate paths in life with being creative and skydiving and starting new things.
Yeah.
And bit more structure.
Yeah, business, sort of a
Business,
business
yeah,
structure,
yeah.
kind of doing, because you can't really run a business without having a certain framework, and which you have to follow. And so I provide that, and then it gives him the opportunity to sort of, run free and do what he wants. And we do that with our domestic life as well, because we have 2 children, and somebody has to stay home and take the kids to soccer and swimming and all the things that we have to do. And that doesn't, it has to be me, because he's running off and he's teaching canopy courses and doing things in the winter. So I do most of my skydiving in the summertime because but it has to be that balance. And I think that's what makes it work, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm there, like, even in the busy season, I'm there about half the time, maybe a bit more than half the time. So I do get to go to the soccer games and the baseball games and pitch, pitch innings, because they do coach pitch, because Matthew's young, and our coach was the worst pitcher. He was, because your coach pitches to your kids in the game. He was striking out the kids, like, dude, that's not your job.
He was losing the games for us.
Yeah, so I was like, I got this.
It was
The
bad.
coach.
I got this. And some of the other dads was like, I got this. Yeah. So I get to do a lot of that stuff. It's just not all, Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
I'm on a jet plane flying to or from a gig.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And that's the hard part, is that I've got my family at home that I dearly love and really enjoying being with. And at the same time, I have this other family.
Yeah.
I still, when I'm doing a canopy course, I call them my kids.
Yeah.
And in the same kind of, quite frankly, loving relationship,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. I'm just nurturing them.
Yeah.
It's just some of them have a lot of tattoos and earrings or whatever, but they're just more of my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, the extended skydiving family, it's part of it.
Yeah, it's always been that way for me.
And the good thing is that you understand what he's doing.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't know if I could have married somebody who didn't understand my passion for it as well. I mean, I had been, doing the whole family thing. And then last year, a friend invited me to go on the Grand Canyon. And I had not taken a break.
Not just like go visit the Grand Canyon.
No, it wasn't like visit. It was
We don't play that way.
It was 12-day rafting trip through the Grand Canyon. And I had to hike down and meet a group.
No cell phone.
And then,
A real adventure.
it was a real adventure. And so... And I said, look, I haven't even spent a night away from my children since they were born.
Not one.
Not a single night away. And I was like, I need this for me. And it's going to cost money, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be effort, but I need this for me. And he was there to support me. He said, okay, I got this.
I was
making
dad
waffles
for a
every
couple of
night.
weeks.
It was fine.
I made a lot of waffles. I did. I made a lot. By the end of it, they were like, I would ask them, you guys want some waffles? No! No more waffles.
Once mommy's gotta go home.
Waffles and stir fry. That's fun. I like making Chinese.
Yeah.
It's a vegetable, so it's good.
It is good, but it's nice to have somebody who appreciates a passion.
Yeah.
And I think that's really finding somebody in life. They don't necessarily have to have your passion. I think they just have to understand a passion.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for when you're in your element, your thing, where you're good at it, you love it, and you're in your highest self. When you're partner is also in that same place in their highest self, now you're dancing on the top of Maslow's pyramid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best thing ever. So, I mean, I love it if everybody finds, she likes to golf and he likes to whatever it is, but to be doing those things together, when we go head down out the door, and even if it's only the one per weekend, and we do our little free fly dance around, and we smile, and we break off, and we open, we fly next to each other on canopy, and now we can talk, which is kind of fun.
Another layer, yep.
And then we land someplace weird, in Norway or whatever, some in-hop in
the middle of town with funny
that was scary.
landing areas.
That was scary.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Oh, just another one of those in-hops. And some places, you go on an in-hop and
you never know what's going to
you
happen.
don't know what it's going to be. And this was, instead of like the mountainous stuff, you go like, oh, Norway, you're flying the mountains. Not always. This was a city.
Oh.
A tiny park.
It was a tiny park
in the middle of the city.
And it was kind of in a ditch. It was dropped down
trees
from the
all
rest.
around it and houses and the whole thing. They're like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It was.
It was, except for when we were in midair, all of a sudden we looked down and I was like, something's happened. Everybody is running. because I could see everybody running
When
across
somebody
the landing
lands,
area.
Yeah.
and everybody starts running towards
Yeah,
them,
that's a bad
I kind
sign.
of a bad feeling, right?
It was bad.
And at that point, I'd already realized that they'd blown smoke, so we could have our direction of landing,
Yeah.
which is unusual because typically in Norway you set up a wind T on the ground, which is not changeable unless they choose to change it. So you don't get people chasing a varying wind sock, right? Which is smart. And this particular time, the wind's going opposite to what we had planned.
Yeah.
And the first two guys down, because we opened a little bit high,
Yeah.
for like the first time, I'm not the first one landing. It's kind of nice. And I see the guy comes in, does a high performance approach, which is unusual. We try not to do that on these in-hops if possible. And everybody's running. I was like, honey, I think we should change the landing direction. Let's keep it simple. We're not going to land right at that spot. We're going to go the other way into the wind, keep it simple, and not add to the congestion, because somebody may have gotten hurt here. And we did.
Yeah, there was nobody above us. We knew we were the last ones in the air.
And you could actually talk to
And
each
we
other.
And
could
we're
talk.
talking to each other. So we're
And it was
okay.
all good.
And
And we
it'd
came
be
in and
fine.
landed, and I see some guy covered in pie.
Oh.
That's
They
why
chased
they
him
were
across
running.
the landing area to pie him. It was his
Like, you could
1,000th
have
jump.
told us.
We did not know. We were like, we thought that we just
Yeah.
Oh.
Again, it's like that again. Oh, no.
decision making
No,
here. What's
it was his
gonna
1,000th jump.
happen? Yeah. But it was okay. I mean, we
Yeah,
were,
sure.
because we're,
Yeah.
but having the ability to talk is nice to be able to make those corrections. But,
Yeah.
but when we do skydive together, it's kind of like a micro date,
Yeah.
Here we are.
No kids.
That is-
kids.
Yeah, they can't come here. It's the one place. They can knock on our door when we're making whoopee, but they can't do this.
Can't do this, and they follow us through Norway, they follow us through Europe and all this, and then that one, and I'm juggling, and then just that one moment I get to go up, ride in the plane. It's just us,
Yeah.
and it's like this little break. So being able to have that together, he's right, being able to share that passion of the same thing.
Sharing peak experience.
It is, and it's like, and my favorite thing to do is jump with him.
Yeah. me
So
too.
it's almost to
it's
the
my
point
favorite
where,
jump.
It's.
I mean, it's fun when we occasionally will share with other people
that's
too.
nice
It's
as well,
nice,
yes.
of course. Yeah. And it never seems to go quite as well as when it's just the two of us.
No, but it's fun.
But
I mean,
we're sharing it.
yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a 4-way or a 10-way, or they're like, oh, it's my 500th jump. You want to come? We're doing a 10-way or a 20. Yeah, sure. Well,
Yeah.
go play target for you.
Yeah.
The worst is like, it's my 100th jump. We're doing a 20-way. You want to come? Sure, I'll dock last. And leave first. But you kind of have to go.
yeah.
I just fly defensively.
How many jumps do you have together? Do you know that?
Together? I don't know.
Well, I have about 1,400
Total?
total. So he's got a lot more than I do.
But together.
Together.
I don't know.
Oh, us together? Just
Yeah,
us
yeah,
jumping
just the
together?
two of you.
Not nearly
I thought
as
you
many
meant,
as
I was
we-
thinking combined.
not
I was
as
like, should we
many
get
as-
on the scale
no.
together? No.
I mean, it's not thousands. It's in the hundreds. It's in the
No.
hundreds.
It's got to be in the hundreds, yeah. Because I had almost 1,000 skydives when we met.
Yeah.
And in the last, 12 years, I've done
Actually,
like 400 or 500 skydives, which is not many at all because I had 2 children and in the last few years I did not do that
you've
many
been-
skydives either.
yeah, you've been
so
busy. And
Yeah.
I would say most of your jumps,
over the last
I'm there.
Yeah. So we probably
all.
have about like maybe 300 jumps together.
Certainly
Maybe
three or
more.
more. Three
or more.
But it's not as much as we have with the teams that we've been
Yeah,
on.
that's true,
Where
yeah.
we've got hundreds and hundreds or
Hundreds, yeah.
thousands with other
Yeah.
folks, but we manage.
Yeah, we have fun. I mean, we have fun together, and every time it's always sort of like, it's like a recurrency jump for me. I'm like, oh, Laura hasn't jumped since she had a baby
right,
9
on
months
Friday,
ago, and
I showed my class the video of the jump we did on Friday because she kind of she needed to brush up. It'd been a little while. So I was like, let's just
winter.
go do a Zen jump. We call it Zen dive is where you don't do much and you hold still. And maybe you change something, or you flip to your head, or you flip to your seat, or something, or you can go to your belly, and you just stop and you look at each other, and the only thing that's moving is the jumpsuit. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And we'll go.
So
So we
funny.
did one of those, and it was very nice. We did a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
but not nearly as much as we could have done, and made
Right.
it, I think, more peaceful. And I broke off stupid high
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing?
because I wanted you to get open high too.
It's like,
'cause
what's That was like really high. It was like 7,000 feet. He's like, all right, I'm almost ready to go. You ready? I'm like,
I do
what?
that. I like my canopy too. And we flew around together and talked, and she's setting up for the landing. I always land first because I'm wing loaded more. And I'm standing there. I was like, so see how close you can get to your hubby. And she flew a very nice approach, and she flared and he tiptoe right up to me and gave me a kiss. I was like, all right,
I saw your landing.
I think you're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're cleared for
You're
20
good to go.
second delays.
I'm good to
now,
go. Although I've realized that there's this thing called cumulative non-currency. And so, if you skydive very, very hard and then you take a break and then you get back into skydiving, it's still quite fresh in your mind and you're able to sort of, pick it up right away. But then if you take another break and then you try to pick it up again, there's this sort of, it becomes farther and farther away, and you're like, okay, I may have jumped, a few months ago, but then I only jumped a few times a few months ago. I didn't jump hundreds of times. So over time, you have to be careful with that, which is why I recently upsized. I was like, I'm not getting as many jumps as I used to.
Yeah, she's on a 91, which is, I remember Katie Hansen was like, oh, that's a big parachute for you.
For you. I know. I'm jumping at 91 now because I felt like, I should. I landed a little bit better now than I used to.
We do weird stuff, I mean, we show up in Estonia, it was like, we're going to do a balloon jump. Oh, really? We're going to jump out of gliders, and they'll drop us in the middle of nowhere, and we don't know where we're going to land. So having a little extra fabric couldn't hurt.
Of course, many people would say a 91. What? That's not a lot of extra fabric.
Yeah, but how long were you on an 81?
That's true.
A long time.
A long, long time,
So was I. But I don't jump an 81 anymore.
No.
I mean, the truth is, I love my smaller parachutes. But most of the time, I got to float in breaks and hang out with my students.
Yeah.
And today, I was with a guy on a 240. I was flying with a guy on a 220. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
And so I was on a 150 Samurai. I jumping 150 Samurai, 136 Renegade, having great fun with those. They land really soft, which is awfully nice.
Yeah.
And I don't have to work so hard because when I'm on a 91 trying to hang out with a 150, I'm in breaks for a long time. I spend a lot of my day in breaks. Right? When you consider, full flight versus that, the amount of time each day that I'm just steering my parachute down here at 3/4 breaks is maybe more than most.
Is that your triceps or your biceps? Me feel. Just kidding.
It's good exercise.
It
Too
is.
bad it isn't worth the abs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. I love it.
Yeah.
I truly do.
It is. It's a wonderful sport.
And we squeeze one in when we can.
We do.
And for many years, before I even flew with people, which you'd come in the canopy course jumps.
I did.
And we get at 7.
I sat through his canopy course 20 times. And it was every time I learned something new.
Wow.
And it made me realize that when you sit through that kind of a training seminar is depending on what you're willing to hear and what you're willing to accept as this is materials for me.
Yeah.
It's that's when you learn it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise it's sort of like a block, oh, I'm never going to swoop. Oh, no, this information is not for me. And so it's out of your mind and you don't think about it. I didn't think I would ever swoop, and then somewhere around, 1,000 jumps, maybe 1,100 jumps, I started swooping. And I was doing 90s, and then I started doing 180s, and then I was doing 270s. I didn't just one day. I was like, turn the 180 into 270, but I had marked it out. I was wearing an audible. I knew what altitude I needed to do it at. And so it was in my head mentally, but I didn't think I would be that kind of person. And then after a while, I realized that I was ready for it. So sitting in his canopy course so many times, I was able to learn and each time pick up new things and new things. But I haven't, like I said, because I'm not very current, I haven't been doing 270s. But I'm sure if I keep jumping by the end of the summer, I'll probably go, oh, this feels good. Boom, no problem,
So you learn stuff when you're ready.
Yeah, I feel like you're open to the information when you're ready for it.
The second time around, I feel like there's a little more familiarity if you've heard the concept but you weren't ready for it, it's so I think we gently migrate into the higher realms of possibility in skydiving through hearing it once, and then it sounds familiar the second time, and then later on you're actually ready to implement, to actually do that thing. But that's the osmosis of being on the drop zone.
Yeah.
The campfire conversations,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Maybe you're not doing it yet, but like an article that I'm working on right now, I call Yes, But Not Yet. Right? So I'm not saying no to that AFF student that wants to fly the wingsuit. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying not yet. That's all.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you can't put on my wingsuit right now before your first jump. I do this all the time. Full kit.
Yeah.
Dress them up. Hell, I'll do it with little kids. And so here's how you fly, and here's how you pull. And I'll put them on the blower fan and the creeper, and we got a fan. This sucker blows air. And you lay in the creeper, and it inflates the whole wingsuit, and they really get the sensation of it. And they're hooked. And they're since they've tasted the dessert, they know what's coming.
Yeah.
But they didn't fill up on dessert. And so now they're going to eat their meal.
Yeah.
They're going to learn, this is your first jump.
basics.
This is the third jump schedule. Here's what you need to focus on. And hopefully they'll be patient enough to not skip steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, YouTube is good and bad, isn't it? It leads people to think, oh yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to be a wingsuit, proximity flyer. It's
Yeah.
going to be like Yoki summer. And I'm not so sure that everybody's
Cut out for that.
should be Espen Fadness or something. Hell, Espen Fadness doesn't even want to be Espen Fadness most of the time. He's like, oh, I don't want to do that stuff anymore because I've watched too many of my friends go in. What would be a better dream? To me, that's the question. Is what would be a sustainable dream where you can see in your mind not only skydiving and being extreme and being cool, but also surviving all of it.
Yeah.
Living to tell the story, being the old skydiver. Can you envision yourself as this 70-year-old super cool with good knees
Yeah.
person
and
that's
wisdom.
in wisdom, who's picking and choosing their loads, but they go.
Yeah.
They still are jumping. And we have a lot of them right here at this drop zone, don't we? Everywhere I go, there's that wise old cool person that they've managed to find their way through, and I think that's a cooler goal.
Yeah.
Than how close can I get my nipples to the rocks? I get it why people want to do this stuff, but just being a skydiver in itself. I do it all the time. I'd be walking in from a jump with a parachute over my shoulder, and I'm looking at all these jumpers, and I go, damn, we are so cool. Just doing what we do.
We're so lucky. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
This and watching the sunset, and thinking, oh man, that was a good day, and these are great people, and I feel like the distance between skydivers is like smaller than the distance between you and normal people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you make a connection just because you're here. And whenever I see like a tandem or a student, I try to reach out to them as well because I want them to feel that connection. I want them to feel like they're part of that community because I feel like people come to skydive because they're like for the thrill or whatever, but they stay for the community.
Absolutely.
Which is an amazing community.
Yeah, we're all moths to the flame of awesome.
Cool finds cool, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yep.
So I got one last question for you, Laura.
Yes.
Are you in the shadow of your husband sometimes?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, I see what you mean. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know if you can say that in English. You can say it in English, so I'll just translate it directly.
no, you said it very well, and I completely understand what you're saying, and I think that in sometimes I am, and sometimes he is, because here's a perfect example. So, after my first child, I was scheduled to do the women's world record, and I had a recurrency jump scheduled. I was going to go do 32 ways, and it was like
Rayford.
at Rayford.
Yeah, sure. I
And
remember
so, my work said, I'm sorry, we can't justify you going to do that. You can't have the leave. And I was like, okay, health insurance or skydiving, health insurance, skydiving. And I had a new baby. I was like, okay, health insurance. Of course, I probably should have just gone skydiving. But either way, I had the recurrency jump set up. And so I showed up at Rayford, and we were doing 32-way, 16-way, 32-way skydives. And Brian, I'm doing this, I'm going to do this. You're going to take care of the baby. And he, pushed that baby cart around for days. And here I was skydiving, doing big ways. And
I'm pushing the pram.
He's pushing the pram. And nobody said a single thing to him. They didn't know who he was because he was invisible behind the baby
I was
carriage.
the woofo pushing the pram.
Not a single person said, "Who are you? Are you Brian Germain?" For the whole weekend.
Yep. And every once in a while, during the dirt dive, they'd be out there, dirt diving their big way, and I'd push the pram a little bit closer, and she'd sneak out of the dirt dive.
No, I'd pick up the baby
grab
and
the baby
stick him on
and
my carrier
nurse.
and go back and dirt dive while
Nurse
I'm
the
nursing.
baby, yeah.
People are like, "Wow,
What's
okay,
up?"
you're doing that while I'm dirt diving, I'm nursing, I'm like, yeah."
And I'd go back to just, pushing the pram. And it was very interesting feeling invisible.
Yeah.
On the drop zone, right? It was very, very weird. I didn't mind it, actually. It was kind of peaceful. it was like a first for me. I almost wanted to buy beer, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like we take turns. So depending on the scenario or where we happen to be, one of us either steps up and we're the lead, or the other one is sort of down. And I think that most of the time, Brian tends to be the one who's the highlight. And I'm sort of a little bit, but to me, it's kind of like I'm the sneaker attack. Like nobody really knows who I am. I'm like this hidden in the shadows. One of my most favorite things to do is like nobody knows who I am, and I'll just manifest, and nobody knows. And I'll just get on a plane, and I'll ask the person what are people doing here? Find me somebody to skydive with, because I don't really know. We travel places, I don't know who they are or whatever. And they'll say, "Oh, this person is new. He has about 100 skydives or something." Okay. And I'll say, "Okay, great, thanks." And then I will go and, and when they're getting ready to get on the plane, I'll say, "Oh, what are you doing? Can I skydive with you?" And they'll say, "Okay, are you sure?" Yeah, we'll skydive together. And then I'll go and I'll jump with them, and we'll, whatever we do, they'll be blown away because, I'm there compensating, like next to them, taking docks and like flying around
them. You
them.
made me look good.
And I make them look good, and they're like, and they'll get down and go, "Wow, I didn't know. That was like amazing.
We took grips.
They look like
I touched somebody.
I touched somebody. Like they were like, I didn't know what to do. You were like right there, and then you grabbed me, and I didn't know what was gonna. And so this happens all the time where I kind of hop in. I'm like that sleeper. Nobody knows who I am, and so I get to, I get the opportunity to kind of make something special for somebody, or because. So I do.
True.
So I get to live in the shadow, but it's not a bad shadow.
Maybe so mostly on the drop zone, but you flip flop at home.
That's true.
Where I'm pretty much the private. And she's
at
the
home,
general.
and I'm the general in the house.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm like, well, because I'm scheduling the kids and managing the, everything that has to happen. Yeah. Except for when we travel, because when we travel, I do not manage anything. Except for, taking care of the kids.
That took a little getting
food.
used to, in the same way that, like, we'd ride to altitude, coming from a four-way background and sort of thing. She's like, "So what are we doing?"
Yeah.
We got dirt dive. I was like, "No, man, we're free flying.
Where are we staying?
Free, no
sleeping?
plan.
No plan. There's no plan
like,
here.
where are we sleeping? You'll see.
We'll figure it out.
I don't know yet.
Figure it out?
They always take care of us.
Yeah, I was going to go gray just thinking about that. And this is 12 years ago.
And you decided to surrender to trust.
I
right?
did.
And it always works out.
It does. He manages all of the travel when we travel in the summer.
I do all the bookings and all the,
So you can just
kind
relax.
of my
I don't even ask. People say, "Where are you going to next?" And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Yeah, really? I don't know.
Someplace nice.
Somewhere, wherever. It'll be cool.
Somewhere with skydivers,
With skydivers, exactly.
I pack the suitcases with the kids, and I get everything ready, and I figure it out.
And I just make sure there's food.
Yes,
Okay,
you're damn good at
that's
that.
your job.
We travel with a massive amount of emergency food because sometimes we're stuck.
And you don't know.
Yeah,
right? We were in Skåne after the midsummer boogie a couple of years ago, and everybody left. And we had no car. We're locked up in this, basically Air Force Base, right?
Yeah.
with nothing. And so we foraged for berries in the forest.
And there was not very much.
No.
And so we didn't know what to do.
There was some, but
There was
not enough
some.
to fully, we had little kids, right?
Yeah,
So we're like, oh, okay. And so we went digging around. And
Found
we
some
managed to
food.
find a freezer with leftover food from the boogie.
Oh.
Pretty good stuff,
It
actually.
was really good.
And so we got through the next several days.
did.
All right, and then somebody came back. And,
Like, sorry, we ate
Puffer
your
was there, but he
food.
was kind of in a, he was sort of in a low mood that year, and so he did really kind of, he was invisible. But yeah, we always get through.
We do. We managed, but I've learned because the first year we traveled this way, we all lost weight. Because I had not,
Yeah.
because I hadn't figured it out. And so then it took me a few years to figure out, like, okay, I constantly have to have these bags of food. And you would see, we should weigh this. But I brought a bag with like snack bars
Well,
and
we
like
have to
nuts.
weigh it if we're going to fly in a Bonanza to the next gig.
have
Right,
to
they're
weigh
like, here, we'll fly you in our small plane to the next gig. We're like, do you know how much we weigh?
Wait,
we weigh
I do. I was like, I weighed myself.
850 pounds.
I'm like 250 pounds myself with all the nuts and the snacks that I brought. I'm like, this is got to be like 250 pounds of snacks and nuts. But we're gone for 6 weeks. And, like even today, I didn't have a car. So I walked a mile to the grocery store and the back. And people were like, wait, you walked? I'm like, yeah.
That's
you
what
know,
feet are for.
that's
all right.
it's fine. I don't have any problem. But I'm the one who's always kind of making sure that there's snacks
Food.
and milk and food for the
God
kids.
bless you for it. Yeah, that's really saved our asses many times. You're really good at that. Yeah, really
It gives
good.
me, at least I have something to do, since
and
he's
she
doing
can,
all
like-
this whole travel
And she can
management.
make a meal out of nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, there's times we're in the middle of the winter, it's like snowing, icy, rainy, or whatever, we're running out of stuff in the fridge. And I'll be downstairs sewing and go upstairs and go, oh, wow, I thought we were out of food. What's this beautiful dinner? Where'd that come from? And
Yeah,
she'll
just a little this and that.
Yeah, she's good at that.
Throw it together. I wasn't always. I think it's kind of developed over time. I think the internet has made me a better chef, honestly, because you're like, how do I make this, cream sauce business? And then you go online and you read, and then you go, oh, okay, that's how you do it. And then it sticks in your brain, and then you can
It's
use
true.
it
Because
whenever
when I met
want.
you, you were like more of a going out to eat sushi.
Oh, yeah.
Because she was making a ton of money and she was living by herself. And she had a rent controlled apartment. And
It was good.
yeah,
Life was good.
she'd like, grab a beer and some food and go to the movie theater and sneak it into the movie.
Oh, every night. Yeah, I was like, I'd throw on my inline skates and throw some food and a beer or two in my backpack, and I'd go and skate through the city and then go sit down and watch a movie. And I was like, you know that, you see a lot of movies when all the old movies that are coming out onto, DVD or VHS or whatever it was back then are, you've already seen all of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I knew that I was, but it was a different life, I was single and free.
Yeah.
And
And now you are married and free.
Married
Married
and
and
free
free.
in another kind of way, but
Yeah.
not totally free because I'm
Yeah.
still wondering who's watching our kids right now.
Well, yeah. I mean,
So
I
are
told
they
them
going to grow up and be skydivers?
That's totally up to them, but a
Yeah.
very common conversation is when I get to skydive, I'm going to do this, and I want to, all these tricks that they hope to do or whatever. But they're already, as far as I'm concerned, they're already skydivers.
Yeah.
I mean, they,
Yeah.
just today I was out there in the landing area. There's a nice little wind, and so I said, Joshua, quick, just filmed the landings for my canopy course, And I threw the rig on him and inflated the parachute and got it up over his head. And he was like, a little bit of brakes, a little more, and I push him from behind, and he rises up, and he's 2 meters up. I'm holding, just push him forward, and a little more brakes, a little less. There you go, a little to the left, and he just flies and flare, land, and
Whoa.
he's been doing this for years. Both of them have.
Yeah, we have a big field near our house, and he's constantly out there like kiting them on tethers, and I'm like, oh. I was like, look, you have to give them, before you do it in heavy winds and you let go, you have to make them sit through one of your canopy courses, because I'm not sure they've actually done that yet.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, they fly in the tunnel. They're very good.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah,
Kids are
as you
good,
might
are good in
expect.
tunnel.
Yeah, they are.
I've discovered that kids have the potential, many kids have the potential to be very, very good. Some of them can be crazy. I mean, full on panic
Yeah.
attack, climbing on you like a scared monkey that just heard fireworks.
Yeah.
like wrapped around
Yeah.
the instructor and shoes falling off. It's chaos. Some of them are like that. We've had a few families that we
taken a
brought
few
there. We're like,
groups
oh,
there.
wow.
And it depends. I think it depends on. I mean, I think it's just like the way that skydiving sort of filters people out. I think that the kids are also sort of filtered out, but because there's not this sort of choice to go skydiving, people are just like, oh, we'll go on the ride in this wind tunnel. You know, it's like
it's not
you
a
don't have
ride.
that same sort of
It's-
filter.
yeah.
So you have all these different kids.
Yeah,
who
tunnel's
sort
not a
of-
ride
Yeah.
at all.
No, it's not. I mean,
It's an
although it
athletic
is sort
event.
of, it is. You're right, and yet it is kind of a ride in a way. I mean, the people are treating it as a ride, and as a skydiver, we don't see it as a ride because we
it's
understand
training.
the practical part of it. But it is kind of become a
Bumpy,
ride.
thumpy, and occasionally terrifying.
Yeah, it can be. Sure enough. Yeah, I mean, I've hurt myself in a tunnel for sure.
Yeah, who hasn't? Who has? Those walls are hard.
Yes,
See,
they
back in
are.
the olden days, you didn't hit stuff, right? I flew in the first tunnel in the world. I was just fortunate enough to grow up skydiving right down the road from the Saint-Simon, Quebec, or Quebec, depending on where you're from, wind tunnel. It was outdoor. It wasn't quite outdoor. It was like these padded walls at that one, and then big inflatable mattress around the edges of it. And
Whoa.
it was a conical wind stream, so you'd get up to the top and you'd fall off and hit a big pillow.
Like in the movie, is it Cutaway?
Yes. Yeah, then we had the outdoor one that we would go
Yeah.
to in New Jersey, which was kind of near where I grew up, and that was on the side of a mountain. It was quite pretty. And you'd get in the tunnel, and the skydivers would, try to do tricks, and they'd come out and say, oh, you can't do those tricks. And so you'd get in the airstream, get yourself a few feet up into a slow turn. The guy's not looking. So you hit the brakes, and you pop up to 20 feet. Ah! And I was up there on the top, and I was balancing on this, pointy wind stream, right?
Yeah,
Where you
yeah.
really can fall off with just airbags down you below, and it's wide open airstream. And I look over. This is on the side of a mountain. It's a ski hill. It's a ski mountain. And there's this eagle or hawk or some sort of raptor riding the thermals. And
Wow.
He's right near me, and he looks over at me. And I look over at him, and he was like, tipping the hat, I was like, hey, what's up? And he just kind of flew away. And I will never, it was just seconds. But it felt like an eternity, and it burned in my long-term memory. And I noticed we have that kind of thing in skydiving all the time, where it's just this 2-second infinity
Yeah.
that will be with you for the rest of your life. And I think we need to reach for those moments,
Yeah.
more than anything else. It's not about counting points, ultimately, to me. It's not about how far you swoop. It's about these moments that stick to your ribs, you know what I mean? Where you really wake up in that moment.
Yeah. When you see the rainbow. I just had to get
She used
that
to
in
get, she used to get in trouble a lot with her four-way
my
team.
four-way team. We were like training one time, and we're flying, formation, and all of a sudden I look into the distance, and there's a rainbow, like I'm like free falling with my team in a rainbow, and I'm like, everybody, look, stop, look, there's a rainbow, and they're all like, what are you talking about? Keep skydiving. And I'm like, but look, there's a rainbow. Come on, we're supposed to stop and look at the rainbow. And we get down, and they're all like, what was that all about? And I was like, but there was a rainbow. So it became this joke, this ongoing joke. It's like, oh, it's a rainbow. I saw the rainbow. Laura's distracted by the rainbow.
Oh, that's one of the things I love about
But I
you.
like
that. You
that,
get
you know?
that.
I want
That
that. I
you-
want to stop and
You
look at
get
the
that.
rainbow.
You grab those moments when they're there because they're fleeting and then they're gone.
Yeah.
I love floating in breaks under a canopy, and
Yeah.
you just take it in and look at the horizon and go, damn, I am in this moment one of the luckiest people on this whole planet. Right in this moment. And I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future.
Yeah.
I'm right now.
In a state of flow.
Alive.
Yeah.
Really alive. Yeah. That's why I do it.
Yeah. Those moments, yeah. They're special.
Well, thank you very much for joining Skyhooked.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.
Yeah, I'm hooked.
Yeah, I'm hooked.
All right. I love what you're doing. This is great. Keep on doing it.
Yeah.
We will.
Denmark rocks.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
about episode 62 or something like
That's,
that.
wow.
keep doing it. Yeah, I mean I've been coming to Denmark for many, many years, and I've watched the skydiving community evolve.
Yeah.
And it's really come into its own.
Yeah.
It's
It has.
fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
gone from being, kind of on the edge, You know, you go to Sweden or Denmark and you're like, wow, these guys are really good. And you go down to Denmark and okay, they're a little step behind, you know, or something. In the way that you might go to some places in Eastern Europe or something and go, all right, they'll catch up eventually. But man, Denmark has caught up.
Yes, they have.
Oh yeah, it's really fun. And you guys are wonderful people. Really easy to make smile, ready to laugh. You know, kind of easygoing and.
We have free healthcare, so
That makes all the
true.
difference.
I think it helps. I think it helps. Yeah, it's free for us too if we don't get sick. You know.
Free if you don't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
very
again,
good.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us.
Hi.